Class, welcome to the weekend. I know we have Iowa State playing today and Iowa plays today, and playoffs for high school started last night. I know Waukon won and DCG won, so that's exciting for Amanda and Danielle's high schools. So if you went, hope you didn't freeze to death. Lesson plans that I promised you and give you an example of that. And when those are due, we will have 4 of those throughout the course of the class. So it's a good time to walk through it so you really understand it. And then what the week will bring for us from there. So on the Moodle, if you scroll down to week 2, the lesson plan template, there's a lesson plan checklist, the forum feedback rubric, and then here is where you will give feedback to each other on your lessons. Then this is where you will submit the final lesson plan after revision. Each article that I need you to read along with the chapter 3 in the Writing Thief book before you write your lesson plan. Give you some ideas there. And then there's another assignment around that reading teacher article. So just a reflection about what you learned about from that article. So getting into the lesson plan template, it looks like this. And it is first thing on there, put your teacher, your school, your grade. You probably don't have a period. That's really for junior high and high school. Don't think I have any junior high and high school teachers in this class this time. But this first section is where your standards will go. Now the Iowa Core standards were updated in December of 2016. So if you haven't looked at them for a while, or you had an old copy that you looked at instead of the one downloaded from the Moodle, make sure you're looking at the updated version that's online or that you've downloaded recently. But this is where the standards go. You'll have those learning targets here. Relating the learning to students, this should be in student-friendly terms. What are you going to tell the kids? Why are they learning this? Give them a real reason for why they should know it. Not that they're going to do it later in high school or in college, but the real world reason. And then the assessment part will go here. You should be assessing throughout your lesson, whether it's formative assessment, maybe it's a summative assessment, doesn't matter. You should have either at least one, if not multiple, assessment opportunities there. This number 5 is content area literacy standards for history and social studies. This is really a 612 standard. However, if you're doing an informational writing and you can tie it to your science class and there's some science standards that would go in there, or social studies, vice versa, I would put those standards in here too and what you're going to link in there. Academic vocabulary, words that are going to need additional instruction. And then how are you going to teach those? How are you going to model those? So don't just put the words in there, but tell me how you're going to teach them. And then the 7, this section, is the actual huge hunk of the lesson. This is actually how and what you're teaching. So this is the biggest part of this lesson plan. 8 is the resources and materials. This is where your mentor text titles will go. If you're using technology, what books you're using, whiteboards, pictures, whatever. These last 2 are similar and different. People tend to think they're the same. They are not. This is access engagement for all. So how do you know the students are engaged in the learning? Okay, don't forget your upper level students, your lower level students, your special ed students. How are you going to make sure all kids are accessing what you want them to learn? And then 10 is how are you going to differentiate or modify or accommodate for those lower level learners or higher level learners. And then the last part here, these 5 questions I want you to answer as well. So how did the lesson support 21st century skills? You will more than likely have to go back to the Iowa Core standards, look at the 21st century skills. This is not just technology. There's a lot of 21st century skills, so go online and find them. And then how did it reflect academic rigor? Rigor is the level of difficulty. It's hard to say it that way. But so you see one's academic rigor and the other one's cognitively engaged. So the text might be really hard, but if you're having them just listen to it, then it's not as cognitively engaging. They don't have to work their brain as much. And then how did the lesson engage students in collaborative learning? Right? This is speaking and listening standard 1, should be in almost every lesson, but collaborative learning has very high research as well that you should be using. And then what did you learn as you were creating this lesson? What was difficult? What did you think about that you hadn't thought about before? Any of those sorts of things go there. This next one then was the lesson plan forum feedback rubric. So you will submit your lesson plan in the forum first. Then you will be giving feedback to 2 of your classmates around their lesson to try to improve the lesson. These are the things I will be looking for. So we shouldn't just have one sentence. Responses to the forum post contain limited connections or applications. We really want deep thinking and help in getting real high quality lessons. The forum posts make a clear connection to the learning and suggest means for application and improvement. So you should have some suggestions in there. And then this last one is responses to the forum posts are insightful and contain strong connections to the learning with clear applications to their classroom and improvement toward exemplary lesson plans. So that is what I'm going to be grading these lesson plan forums on. So keep those things in mind as you go through there. I do have, I haven't posted this yet, but I will post this. This is the lesson plan example that I've chosen to share with you. So this one has a lesson plan on it, plus in purple is my comments. This is not the classroom comments. There were additional comments or feedback from other students, but this one has my feedback on it. So you can kind of see it's a first draft, and then it has my feedback on it. They have to go in and revise and retain or reload. I hesitate to put on an exemplary writing plan because there's so many different grade levels and there's so many different purposes for writing that it was hard to pick one that would be an exemplar lesson. So I decided to pick a lesson that has some feedback on it so that you can see all the thinking behind it. So this was a good one that had lots of feedback that has questions for you to think about. In this first section where you put the Iowa Core standards, there should be writing standards, of course. Make sure you include the DOK level. You do not need to put the writing around what the DOK level is, but you should have DOK 1, 2, or 3, 4, whatever it is, okay? But you don't have to write that. But the standard has to be written out. Write the number and the standard out, and then just put behind here DOK 1 or 2. And then if there's speaking and listening that's happening throughout your lesson, then those standards should be in here as well. If you're doing some reading, that standard should be in here as well. If it's not, I will ask you to put it in there. When you're thinking about literacy, it is all intertwined. So you can't do reading or writing without reading and vice versa. And you're going to have spelling standards and all that good stuff from language as well. So here's the learning targets, and here's my feedback. So students will create a draft using those responses. Well, what is this draft? Draft of an informational, a narrative? Is it a brainstorming draft? Be specific. Be specific. Students will gather information from a peer in order to answer questions. How is this different than completing an interview questionnaire? I think it's the same thing. Here's another one. What is organizational structure? Everyone has a different idea what that might mean. So be specific in these pieces. This has a lot of learning targets, but I believe this lesson was over multiple days. This does not have to be just a 1-day lesson. It can be 2 weeks. It can be an entire week, whatever you choose. So your learning targets should match, kind of the length of instruction. And then this needs to be in student-friendly terms. Okay, that is a common mistake most people miss, that this is to be in student-friendly terms, meaning that it is exactly what you would say to your students. How does note-taking relate to the world outside of school? Why do they have to know how to do a final draft? Because you said so? We need a real-world reason. That's what I'm looking for here. So be real careful on that section. And then the assessment. So here's lots of things that they're going to do in this lesson, which are good things. Don't get me wrong. However, how are you using it to see if kids are moving towards the standard you want them to get to? How are you assessing sharing? How are you assessing interview? How are you monitoring the things you want them to do? Checklists are fine. Don't think that it's just always a paper pencil test that could be an assessment. I could walk around with a checklist in class while kids are interviewing each other and check off, yep, they're engaged in the learning, asking good questions. Those are all things that we can do as teachers to make sure that they're participating and that they're moving towards all those standards. The rubrics aren't on here, but it's also, if you have rubrics or any other materials that go with your lesson, you need to upload those into the forum so we can see those too. I have to see the rubrics if you're using an online resource or a text that we don't know. Even the title's fine because I can Google that. But if it is a text that we couldn't find or we wouldn't know that's not an actual book, please upload those. Graphic organizers, if you have those, upload those. All right, so she thought this might go with music. I don't think it really does. They're not going to get any music standards out of this lesson, although it's a fun activity, probably isn't going to address any standards. So if it doesn't connect, don't put anything here. If it does connect, please put something there. Here's her her vocabulary, or their vocabulary. I don't even know who this is. And they just told what it was. You have to tell me how you're going to teach it. How are you teaching this? Here is where the big bulk of the lesson should go, and I didn't get a lot of how. What are you doing? This is what you're doing, but you're not telling me how you're doing it or why they're recording it. Why are they doing what they're doing? This is not enough. This should be expanded 2, 3, 4-fold. In this section, this is where your mentor text would be. Technology you're using, links that you might have, the interview questionnaire, so that would be another resource that you would attach to the forum. She needs clipboards. Where's her writing template? Make sure that that's included if you have it. Pencil, biography, rubric, make sure the rubric's attached. See where I'm getting at? Any of those things that we need to know, attach it in the forum. And then here's the access and engagement for all. Differentiation and accommodation. And then here's the 21st century skills that she had, which is great. She actually copied it and put it in there. And then students are required to ask questions to appear. If they are using the recording to do the writing, what is the point of note-taking? So they were note-taking and then they're recording. It's a lot of steps. Which one's most important? How did this lesson cognitively engage students? This right here, technology alone, partner work alone, small group work alone is not cognitively engaged. That's collaborative, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're using their brains. So really think about how you're answering this one. And then lastly, he put on here that he wanted feedback on the rubric as well as any other differentiation opportunities that you might suggest. So they asked for specific feedback from their peers on some areas that he or she was not sure of. So that is, purple is my comments, black is the original. So just an example to think about. If you have questions, email me, post it in the forum. I'll answer in the forum so all can read it. But this is where the example I will put on the Moodle, which again, it's not on here yet. Here's the actual forum. You need to have your lesson uploaded by Friday at 8 p.m. You need to give the feedback to 2 students by Sunday at 8 p.m. And I too will give feedback to every single student by Monday, the 6th at midnight. It will more than likely be before that, but that will be the drop dead time that I will have those feedback in there. We go back to the main page, that was just the forum. Then here you will make revisions based on the feedback you got from peers and myself. And here is where you will upload it, and it is due Saturday, November 11th. So you have the whole week to make those revisions. I do it that way because that same week you also have another lesson plan that you're working on. So mostly the rest of the class you'll have one lesson plan that you're drafting and one lesson plan that you're revising as we go through. So that's why I give you a big time in between. Please read chapter 3 around informational writing before you start your lesson, as well as this reading teacher article. Great information around informational writing. And there is an assignment, it's a 1-page reflection around that article. It is due Thursday, November 2nd. There will also be another assignment this week around spelling and conventions. I will post that later for you, but that is the big bulk of our week this week. So I hope you enjoy your weekend. Stay busy, stay warm. Text me, email me anytime you have any questions. Thanks so much. Have a great day.